Okay, let's start. So, welcome everyone to this webinar on why C-suite executives should know or should be aware of international business laws. So, just to introduce myself, my name is Komal Shah. I am a co-founder and content head for 𝗨𝗡 𝘂𝗀, and I have taken on the prime time slot of 9 p.m. From Ramanuj. But there are a lot of interesting things that we are going to discuss today in this webinar. So let's kind of begin. So please let me know your professions or your vocations. Are you a law student? Are you a founder? Are you a CXO? And what makes you interested in this topic, which is specifically for C-suite executive. So let's say, are you a current or a potential C-suite executive? Please put down your occupations right now in the chat. Please put down your occupation in the chat. No one? Okay. IT director. Okay, great, Ravi. Great. Okay. Anyone else? Okay. Let's move forward. So welcome, Ravi. Great to know you are an IT director. So let's move and let's have a look at how international business laws can actually help you. Let me run this. So why C-suite executives can benefit from learning international business laws? Now, let's just imagine this and kind of, go through the situations as we go along. So imagine that you are at the helm of a company, right? You are leading, you are driving everything for the company. Okay, you are driving the business. Now, when you have to evaluate deals or potential transactions, what is it that you look at? Okay, so let's say you are considering a specific deal or a transaction. So what is it that you consider when you are looking at it? Do you consider potential growth opportunities? So will there be a situation where you are looking at this deal or this transaction is likely to give me really great growth opportunities? It's going to enable my foray into a specific area. Okay, we have some ROI and risks. Yeah, exactly. Great. Prerequisites. ROI and risks are the prerequisites. So I'm just throwing some things that might be considered. All of these might be considered as well. It may not be one thing. So is it hardcore revenue generation? Is it a cost versus benefit? So that also people will evaluate or check. Yeah. Legalities specific to countries. Of course you will. And a cost benefit analysis. So all of these points, like these are quite a few things which can be considered when you are looking at a deal or a transaction, right? So very rightly identified, Ravi. Do you conduct a risk analysis? You already wrote that, right? So we do. Okay, when you are looking at a deal, you always look at what is the risk in that deal. Okay, you conduct a risk analysis for that. Now, this specifically, there can be deals and transactions that you are looking at, but spreading globally and entering into another country, an international foray, this is a huge decision for a company. Okay, it needs a lot of consideration. All the things that we just discussed will go into it for sure. Okay, so it's a major decision, and there can be a lot of factors which are beyond your control. So like you will not be able to dictate, or you will not be able to kind of arrange things. You will not be able to predict these things as well. Okay. So the economy of a country might be suddenly impacted by something. Okay, this can very much happen. We saw what happened in the lockdown. And if you see specifically come into the talk of economic impact, okay, so this is what I have actually witnessed firsthand. I was in Ireland in 2009, and 2009, as all of us know, was the year when there was this subprime lending crisis. Okay, and I have witnessed what happened to the Irish economy there, okay, at that time after the Lehman crash. Okay, so everything was completely shaken. Like, and people were like, "This is too huge than what we had thought it to be." So people lost their jobs. Banks had to be supported by the government. A bad bank had to be set up. We are in India also, there's this consideration that there can be a bad bank that gets to be set up. So a bad bank had to be set up, and all of these things happened really fast, right? Government policies can be suddenly changed. Okay, and we saw how the change happened. I mean, like, India can is no surprise. Same things can happen with other countries also. So now just think of this, like, imagine an investor who had invested in a real estate developer in India on the 1st of November 2016. Okay, they were badly hit by what happened after that, right? So yeah, this can happen, right? So you don't know, overnight policies change and things can suddenly change, right? And this is also there. Finally, laws of the country can be suddenly changed. So it can happen that suddenly some law or some regulation is brought out which you hadn't anticipated. Okay. And it might seem like, something that is not that important, but in fact, it is so important and it is considered to be so high impact that governments actually enter into what is known as bilateral investment protection treaties, right? We'll see what that is. Yeah. Good evening. Yeah. So, like, that can happen suddenly, and you can see that happening. So this is one news which I wanted to show. This is 2019, but there are bilateral investment treaties in force with other countries, between India and other countries, basically. So safeguard companies from sudden change in local laws. And this is what brings governments to sign these treaties. So like, it is bilateral investment protection treaty to safeguard prospective Indian investments in Russia. Okay. So a law or a sudden change in law is that important. Okay. It would feel like, how much of an impact it creates, but it can create an impact which is significant enough to, make the government enter into bilateral investment protection treaties, right? So, like I said, it's so important that, the governments consider this. So it's a very clear need that, people or businesses should first of all know what these laws are right now when you're making an entry. Like, you should know what it is in the first place. That's one very clear thing that you have to be aware of. Otherwise, like, how are you going to frame your transactions accordingly? Okay. And the intention is to ensure that the investments, intention of these treaties is to ensure that the investments from entities in other countries are protected, because a sudden change in the local laws can make that investment unviable. And this is true when companies are investing in businesses which are dealing with natural resources. Okay. And there is some use of natural resources and suddenly something can be changed. Like, I think sometime back, there were some changes in mining laws making things a little bit difficult. So like that, there can be things or businesses which are connected particularly with natural resources. Okay. That is one case where it becomes like, a really huge investment, and the investment can become unviable. Okay. If the laws suddenly change, the local laws suddenly change. Okay. Someone has a question here. Someone just raised a hand. So please put your questions down in the chat as we go along. Okay. So, the investment can become unviable, okay, if there is a change, and that's why it is required to have this. So, okay, we need to know the laws and we need to understand, like, what kind of changes can happen. But if you are at the helm of the company, or if you are the CEO, then why do you need to understand this? Okay, would it not suffice to have someone who is a really smart in-house counsel, or like, have a really good consultant, or have lawyers who are like, advising you on that, and they can have a search, they can find out all of the things. Okay, they can actually work out what will happen if there is a change in law. All those things they can work out, right? So why do you need to do this yourself? Okay, why? What is the case for a CEO to be aware of this? This is one reason. Strategy always flows from the top down. So you're always going to have a situation where the strategy is decided by the top management or the board or the CXOs. Okay, they decide how a transaction is going to be shaped, and then it is the in-house counsel or the lawyer's role basically to structure the things accordingly. Okay, so they can say, but if there is an aggressive strategy at the top, okay, so then it is not going to be the position of an in-house counsel or a junior lawyer or someone to cross that strategy. Okay, they will find out, or they will work through what supports or what works best in such situations. But the strategy will always flow from the top down, right? So even if you have in-house counsels or lawyers or consultants, if the tone at the top is different than what these guys are thinking, okay, then their effectiveness is going to be reduced. If the tone at the top is such that the strategy is really, really aggressive, high risk taking strategy, okay, so then these guys effectiveness might come down, okay, because that is what is the strategy the company is adopting. Now, to better understand this, let's look at something that's called a litigation risk. And it's not just the change of laws. Let's look at what this is, right? So this is simply the risk that an individual or company will face legal action. And legal action can arise not just because of, someone initiating a litigation. It can also arise when regulators start proceedings against a company, right? So that is also a situation where there can be a legal action which is initiated. It's not just that there is an opposite party and there is a dispute and there is a breach of contract. There can be also regulators initiating legal action, right? And this is particularly true for sectors which are prone to litigation. Okay, and what are those sectors? Sectors which deal with public health, okay, like pharmaceuticals, or public money, like the BFIS. So banking, financial services, and insurance, BFSI rather, okay, as we call it. And lately, public data, as you see, where data is involved, entities which are collecting data, and we have people who are IT directors here. So who knows this better than you? Okay, collecting public data, dealing with public data, you can become prone to litigations and or legal actions rather. And not only that, it can be like cross-border legislations. Okay, so like we see GDPR, these are cross-border These don't apply. These are not country specific. They apply across the borders. Okay. So if you're looking at that, if you're dealing with public data and you are handling that, okay, you can be in a situation where you are prone to litigation risk. And litigation, as I stated, we are not taking only in the case of a contract breach. We are taking in the case of a situation where there is a legal action which is initiated by a regulator. Okay. And when you are operating in more than one geography, then you are subject to laws of all these countries. Okay. So you are therefore susceptible to higher litigation risk. The simple connection is that the more compliance requirements you are supposed to follow, the higher is your risk. Okay, that there will be some violation or some drop in the compliance, and there can be something that is initiated by a regulatory authority, right? So if you are operating in more than one jurisdictions, okay, naturally the legal requirements and the compliance requirements of both these jurisdictions, or as many jurisdictions as you are operating in, start to become applicable to you. Okay, and therefore there is a higher risk that somewhere something gets missed or dropped, and there is some action that is initiated against you. Okay, so you become more, it's a higher if you are operating in more jurisdictions or more geographies. Okay. Now, how does the CEO's understanding of laws impact litigation risk? We saw that, you know, even if we get really good legal aid, their effectiveness can somewhat be changed if the strategy at the top is really aggressive, high risk taking, okay, and is going in a different direction than what they would recommend, right? So how does the CEO's understanding of laws impact the litigation risk? Okay. Here is where this comes along. There was a Harvard Business Review article, and they did a very good survey on this. Okay, so they were actually trying to review whether lawyers make better CEOs than MBAs. This is all that they were trying to actually find out, and they did a lot of research. Okay, so they did a comprehensive research on a lot of different kinds of suits, okay, or litigations that were initiated, legal actions that were started, violations, everything. So all kinds of legal proceedings in different zones of laws. It will be antitrust, it will be employment related litigations, it would be a lot of different types of litigations that they had a look at. And this was like 70,000 different types of suits they checked, okay, they researched on. And it involves some 3,500 CEOs, okay. And what they found was that companies which were led by lawyer CEOs were characterized by less litigation. I'll come into the findings a little bit later, but this is what they kind of arrived at, okay. So how did they do? What did they do? They removed the impact of a lot of different elements, like, you know, they removed that, let's say the size of the company was an impact. If it was smaller, then that's the reason why someone were more effective. They also considered what was the impact of having more lawyers in the team, like, you know, you had a good support system of lots of legal in-house counsels. All of these factors which would impact this, they considered, okay. And after deducting or removing the impact of all of this, they kind of arrived at this situation. But there were very specific findings, okay. So what were these specific findings? Let's have a look. It's a relatively old survey, okay. This is like close to 9 years back, okay. But the findings in that survey are very interesting and they can hold really good. What are those findings? The first finding is that in the industries which are prone to high litigation risk, okay, or high compliance requirements, CEOs which had a legal background were successful in developing firm policies which considered the downsides and reduced the litigation risk. So simply, if they were in a situation that, like, you know, they were more susceptible. They had lot of chances of litigation being initiated, legal action being initiated against them. What happened was people who had a legal background were able to take care of all of that. They considered that, okay, I'm in a high litigation risk, and the strategies from the top were like that. Okay, so they planned their business transactions in such a manner that that litigation risk got reduced. Okay, but the second finding was that in industries which were subject to a relatively lower litigation risk. Okay, so let's say it was like some industries which were trading in specific products which were not of, which were maybe like consumer goods which were not so much of did not have so much of potential of harming someone's body or someone's finances. Okay, in those industries or those sectors, the CEOs which had a legal background were not that successful, because now in this situation the growth of the firm could be restricted by risk-averse policies. So even in that situation, they would still function in a manner which was risk-averse. Okay, and then that the growth of those companies would be impacted because of that. It was not necessary to function in a restricted manner in those industries, those type of sectors. Okay, but this is what happened. So this is what their findings were, right? Is everyone with me so far? Does this seem like, to make sense? I'd like to hear something. Aman, thank you. Yeah. What are the rest of the people? Only Aman has responded. Are you guys with me so far in what happened in this story, in this survey or research that was run by Harvard Business Review? Yeah. Thank you so much. Brilliant. Okay, so let's move forward to, how these conclusions can be thought of or used, right? So where it ended actually, and it is really, it is true. That's how it is supposed to be, right? So it ended that a CEO needs to be the best of both the worlds. You cannot be so risk averse that you restrict the growth of the company, and neither can you be so aggressive that you put your company or your business in the mouth of a lot of trouble. Okay, so you cannot be in either of those extremes. You have to be a proper balance between both of them, right? So this is correct. So if people at the helm of the company, okay, have a good understanding of business laws, then that can be incredibly helpful in combining a high risk taking shareholder value maximizing attitude with the risk evaluation skills of a lawyer, especially when the companies are looking to go global. Okay, so now if your significant focus is on maximizing shareholder value, you want to do your business or drive your business in such a manner that you increase shareholder wealth. That is for sure. Okay, now you have that attitude as a CEO, but together with that, you have really good risk evaluation skills. Okay, so you are able to check that what is it that can go wrong, because that's one of the ways lawyers are kind of trained to think. What can go wrong? What if? Always lawyers are in this zone. So they will think of what if. They will work or they will prepare their strategy or documents all on this basis. What can go wrong? Okay. So, and especially when the companies are going global, this kind of skill or this kind of thinking is also required together with a risk-taking attitude. So when we are saying that in a global where we are looking to go global, we kind of need to know, okay, the international business laws. And it is such a generalized term that it's very difficult to kind of bottom line or arrive at what is required. Okay. So what do international business laws involve? Okay, fine. I get that, there has to be an understanding of this. But what does it involve? So now four most important things which will immediately impact an international foray. And mind well, this will be applicable not only in the cases where you are looking to establish a presence in another country. This will work even when you are looking to have simply like cross-border transactions. Let's say you are based here and you are looking to supply somewhere, and look at a market beyond your current market. Okay, even in those situations, these things will impact. What are those? This is number one: cross-border contract negotiation and enforcement. Okay, so staying here, let's say you are having an entity there, or even if not staying here, you are looking to enter into a contract with someone based in another country. So very simply, it is going to be a cross-border contract. So now, how does the negotiation work in these contracts? Okay, how do you arrive and how do you agree the terms? How do you bottom line, the deals? How do you just get everything sorted in this case? And enforcement. Okay, enforcement is equally important, if not less, maybe more. Okay, so you decide the terms, but how are you going to enforce the terms? What if the other party does not fulfill their obligations? Okay, what are the mechanisms available to you? What will you do? How will you enforce your contracts? International taxation. I mean, I don't have to make this. This is the reason people go abroad in many cases. Okay, so how laws pan out in other countries and how transactions work out between India and other countries. This can be the reason, or this can be the basis of the decision of an international foray. It is so important. I mean, like, why do you find people in UAE or in Singapore? Okay? Taxation is the huge consideration for that. Okay? So international taxation can be something which, of course, you will have to think of, and you will have to know what kind of laws or what kind of tax provisions are there in that country. Okay? You have to understand. Dispute resolution mechanisms, right? And this happens all the time. You will have collaborations and you will have agreements with companies outside India. What is the dispute resolution mechanism that you apply? Should we make the transaction subject to the laws and the courts of India? Should we make it subject to the laws and courts of that country? Should we go to a completely third country and have an institutional kind of dispute resolution mechanism? We don't want to go to the courts, and we want to try to resolve it by alternate methods like arbitration or mediation. Okay? So what are going to be the dispute resolution mechanisms you have for these kind of transactions, contracts? A clear idea of how the local laws work in terms of, and Ravi, I think, just stated this right in the beginning, you have to have some idea, okay, how the local laws work. And this is particularly for cross-border issues. And this is like I said, even if you're not considering setting up a presence there, this will still apply. So exchange control laws, like, you are making payments. Okay, definitely money is crossing borders in all cases. So how do exchange control laws apply? Okay. International workers. Now you may need people somewhere there, staff. You may have people working from home. I know of technology companies, many companies which have workers in different countries working from home remotely in different countries. International workers is something people will think of, like, where are they going to be employed? What applies to them? Export import related laws. Now naturally, if you are buying and selling goods or services, across the borders, then this is something that you will have to think of, right? Now, you're not going to take a major decision like an international foray without adequate guidance, are you? Like, you're going to go naturally and you're going to find out and take guidance or advice from the right kind of people. Okay. Most companies, when it comes to looking at consultants, specifically international taxation, you may go to people in your local domain. Okay, so there may be people who will approach the likes of 𝗵𝗵𝗵𝗃 Associates or other firms which are experts on international taxation locally. Okay, but if you're looking at some other things, like let's say setting up entities or getting specific licenses, so now in this situation, you will have to go to the consultants in that region. You will have to go to the regulators in that region. Okay, there is no alternative. Like, people here may guide you on things which are cross-border, which, like, guide you on how the Indian laws will impact your cross-border transaction. But if you're looking at establishing presence, looking at conducting some work or services there, looking at getting specific licenses, then you will have to approach the consultants or advisors in that specific country to help you with those things, right? So whose help will you need for your international foray? And why will you need to understand them and be able to work with them? Okay, so like I said, generally in transactions where you are looking to consider the impact of the Indian laws on the transaction, you will look for a local consultant. But for other things, you will look to deal with the consultants in that country. And most definitely, in any event, you will have to deal with the regulatory authorities in that country, because you may need specific approvals from them. Okay. So local regulators, you definitely need to deal with them. You definitely will need to deal with local consultants for something or the other. Okay. So knowing how their laws work, okay, in that country can put you in a much better position while dealing with them. Okay. So the biggest problem that you can face is that if people in a different jurisdiction realize that you really have no clue of what you're talking about, they will go and take you for a nice ride. Okay, so it is very essential that when you are dealing with them, you have at least some sense. You may not be able to go in the depth of something, but you should have at least some sense of how the laws work in order to be able to ask enough questions of them. So you may not go into depth with how the things work and tell them how to do their work, but you have to know it enough to be able to ask the right kind of questions to them, so that you get the answers and they get an idea that you are not venturing into a completely blind territory. Okay, this is very important. I've dealt with consultants in like multiple jurisdictions, so this is something that needs to be taken care of for sure. You have to be able to ask the right kind of questions to them. Okay? Because they know their laws, they don't know your business. What exactly can you become capable of achieving? Okay, now let's say you have got this. Okay, you have got a very comprehensive idea of what international business laws are like you have understood what the how the contract related negotiation and dispute resolution mechanisms work, how enforcement works, how is litigation taken in that country. You have a decent idea. You may not go into the depths of it, but you have a fair bit of an idea of how it works. Okay, so if you are aware, okay, how can the things change? Okay, what can you become capable of achieving if you secure this idea? Okay. You can now evaluate deals for their potential legal downsides. Okay, so let's assume, and I will give you one example, like a company is looking to establish an entity in UAE, or they are looking to establish, or they are looking to just market their services in the UAE. Okay, either one of that they are looking to do. Now, if they're looking to establish an entity, okay, there are certain free zones where 100% foreign ownership is permitted, and you don't really need someone to be a local sponsor to do it. While if you're looking to get a license, okay, a license to market certain things while being out of UAE, you may need to involve a local agent. So now you're going to, in one sense, you will think that establishing an entity involves an expense. Okay, so normally people will think that why do I create a new entity, or why do I create a new setup? Like it's going to only increase my expenses. It's going to increase my lot of different things like requirements and all of that. Okay, and instead I can just like market my services. But now you have to think that is it worth involving a local agent? Okay, so you will be able to evaluate deals like this because you are aware what the law needs. Okay, so you will be able to evaluate the deals for their potential legal downsides. Okay, you can steer your business transaction in such a way so that you achieve your business objectives without falling out of place with the law. You have a very clear business goal when you are venturing into another country. Okay, you have decided what exactly you want to do. Okay, so very clear business goal when you are looking to do that. But being aware of the law will help you shape or steer your transactions in such a manner, strategize your transactions in such a manner, right? Everyone with me until now? Any questions that you guys have on this? Anyone has any specific questions? Guys? No questions? So this next slide is very important and I would want you to see this. Remember, you understand your business objectives much better than the lawyers who advise you. Okay, and you will now understand the law much better than the business heads who are supporting you. Okay, so when you have business teams or investment teams specifically, I have seen this. Investment teams, they can be incredibly optimistic when they are going out and they are putting money into something. They are like, wow, we are going to get incredible amount of returns, and they will make a really flashy presentation before the board, and they will say like, they'll bring all of the ROI and everything forth. Okay, these are business heads. These are like investment guys. They are looking at like, putting the money at in specific places. So they're really optimistic. They're really aggressive about like, let's go and do it. Okay, and then there will be the lawyers who will be like, in this situation that they will advise you that this is what the law is. Okay, and this is what needs to be done. Okay, they will tell you, okay, you can't do this. Okay, that is not permitted by the law. Okay, so but now you understand the business objectives better than these guys. The lawyers will tell you that like, this can't be done. So then you will think of what is the other way, and you will also understand the law better than the business heads who are like, jumping, becoming aggressive and wanting to put investments in a lot of different places. I've seen this. I've seen investment heads like, really optimistic, very aggressive, and they will like, let's do it. Let's put the money into this. So you will now be able to seamlessly communicate with the regulators because you understand like what position this regulator is, what is the kind of problems they can create. Okay, and you will also understand the lawyers and consultants in another country. You will totally get what they are stating. Otherwise, it's like, it sounds Greek. Okay, for someone who is in an operational zone and leading or steering the business of the company, it is like, I, what is this, like, I can't get it. I don't want to get into this zone. This is the objective I want to achieve. But if you get the laws there, it will not sound totally Greek. Okay, and you may be able to guide, or you may be able to get them or tell them that, okay, look at this place, does this have some enabling clause or provision or something where we can go ahead. Okay, I'll tell you, just yesterday I was talking to someone, and she was talking of, shares being allotted to someone, to NRIs or OCI card holders out of India. Okay, and very recently the Indian government has brought an amendment in April 2020. Not that recent, but April 2020 they brought some amendment which kind of seemed like plugging a loophole that was there. So people were taking benefit of it and making investments. OCI card holders were making investments. It was very interesting to know or hear of all of these things. But this is what, so people, if who are really hardcore business, they will be able to guide and see that, okay, go and check the FDI policy. There's something out there. Go and check this. Is there something out there? So they might even direct there. If you have a sense of where to look for when you are entering into another country, you will be able to even put the lawyers to think that go and check this. Hi 𝗵𝗁𝗁𝗂𝗃𝗂𝗵, I want to clear some strategies which can affect international business. Let's look at a great question. We'll look at how that happens. Okay, but this is one advantage. If you are actually understanding, if you are able to get seamlessly understand, you will be able to communicate with these guys. You'll be able to understand what they are talking about. You might even be able to say, okay, fine, is this route also blocked? Is this route also blocked? You might be able to strategize together with them. How can 𝗨𝗂 help you in this? So people are saying, I want to strategize. Now, how can 𝗨𝗂 help you with this? So let me bring this here. Let me bring you guys to something which we thought of. Okay, and we thought not only here of people who are in a lawyer zone, but we considered people who are MBAs, we considered people who are founders, we considered people who are CXOs in a company, and what kind of things they will actually need if they want to steer their business in another country. They want to bring their business to another country. So we looked for resources which would help people to do that. Okay, we began thinking about this because as you see the startup scene right now, there are a lot of entities which are looking to move out of India, and they are doing that even when they are not fully scaled up or saturated in India. They're not waiting until that happens. They are just they want to move and they want to cross the borders. So we were looking and we searched a lot if we could find such kind of a training program which will actually enable someone to be aware of all of these things as the must needs as we put down. Okay, so these things, if someone wants to know, then what is the kind of training or what is the kind of guidance available to people in this regard. We searched for a lot of different things. We searched for courses, and we searched for online training programs. We searched for videos or the things that are put up in different places. We searched for a lot of different things, but we couldn't find something that would comprehensively put all of these things together. Right now, all these factors that we discussed: contract, dispute resolution mechanisms, taxation, and then being aware of laws of those countries, So we couldn't find anything that had all those things packed together. Okay. So then what we decided is that, we got to make this. We got to make something that will enable people and that will support people to actually do this. And this is what we arrived at. Okay. So we did this together. We joined or associated with Webster to create this course. And if you look at, what we are going to discuss in that course. Okay. So first is like legal systems. So this is put in a very user-friendly manner. 𝗨𝗂, by the way, is known for putting across resources and content in a manner which is understandable to a lot of different people. It is not legal jargon at all. So Trisha's question here is, I started, but then I lost. I lost only because of money, as there was no financial support. Do you think really talent gets a platform? I'm a forensic expert, so now I want to start forensic training program. Let's talk this offline, because forensic expertise goes into a very different domain. So Trisha, we can discuss this offline, but it is not directly connected to the thing we are discussing right now, which is an international foray. So how can international foray be supported? Okay. So I was talking about the content, that how we create the content at 𝗨𝗂 is we do not put the things in a learned manner like how lawyers will want to put it. We don't make our language and content lawyerly. It will be something which is easily understandable, and you will be able to read these things. You will be able to make out these things like a story, because that's how we always create our content. My team, like, in one voice, they will tell you that they hate jargon. Okay. So we don't like jargon and legal terms and all of this at all. We will put things across in such a manner that it's very easily understandable. So legal systems is what we are going to talk about here. And then we are going to talk about negotiation and resolution. So we said that was the first thing, how do we negotiate contracts? How do cross-border negotiations pan out? Okay, so there is going to be some case studies here. Okay, and the person who's going to discuss this is Professor Kassia. I'll just scroll down to her profile as well. She is a faculty at Webster University. She is an advisor to the United Nations, and she is, a mediation consultant in multiple jurisdictions. Okay. So she is going to discuss the international negotiations and how negotiations actually work. She's going to discuss that. Then we have contract drafting, of course. Now, drafting doesn't mean you will actually like sit and check and do all of those clauses, but you must be able to understand the impact of each of them as you come across. Okay. So you must be able to understand what is the impact of these kind of clauses on your business. You must be able to understand how does this impact, or how does this work for you, or does this not work for you, because you may have given certain terms and it may have been put in a different manner, worded in a different manner, to be interpreted in a very different manner. So you must understand how that reads, okay, and what is the kind of impact it creates. And that is what is going to be discussed. And then this is one thing which is like, now common in cross-border contracts. Most cross-border contracts will try to avoid litigation or legal proceedings, and the dispute resolution mechanism will be drawn towards arbitration or alternative methods. So here you're going to be talking about like institutional kind of arbitration. So like, how to use institutions and rules for your international commercial arbitration, that's going to be discussed here. And then we have the core like jurisdiction related things like doing business with China and then doing business in the UK, okay, doing business in the US. So all these things which we discuss, like, their legal systems and the contract enforcement, exchange control regimes, and then IP. How do you protect your IP is a huge concern among businesses in other countries. Okay, labor and employment systems, and then can non-residents own property in those jurisdictions, insolvency and bankruptcy regimes. This is all we are going to talk about. Okay. So UAE, Middle East, so it's UAE, we are going to be talking about UAE largely, and then Japan and Brazil. These are the economies that we have at the moment. And then of course, international transaction, international taxation and transfer pricing. Okay, now it may look like a lot of complicated terms here, but the way things are written again are like, a very simple explanation. If you want to know how simply we break down complex concepts, you can come to a webinar which I am going to conduct on the 24th, where we will explain the double Irish system that was in place for a very long time, which was used by companies to escape taxation in multiple jurisdictions. Okay, so that's something that we will explain. It may look like a lot of complex terms, but the explanation or the way the content is put in this is very, very user friendly. Okay, so this is what, and then there is of course this big consideration or question of how to enter a foreign market. It's the right time. What are the things you need to check or decide, and how to decide the right method or mode of entry. Like I told you, either you set up an entity in the UAE, or you are just looking at a marketing license. What works? Like, what is the right mode to enter the market? What are you going to consider? So roadblocks you are likely to face. We're going to add a few more things here, specifically relating to overseas direct investment. So how do you set up entities abroad, and also things related to international workers. So if, for example, you are having a non-resident come and work for you here in India, or if you are going to have Indian people that you put on secondment to another countries, how does their payments and social security, how do those things work? So we're going to put that as well here. Not only that, we're going to add quite a few jurisdictions here. Okay, new countries. We have only currently China, US, UK, UAE, Brazil and Japan. We're going to add more countries here, and we're going to discuss of the local laws in those specific countries. Okay, so we're going to talk of all of these things in this. And it's not like when the countries increase, something increases for you. This is how it will be. So that is what the course is about. This is what we put together, because we realized that there isn't anything like this available anywhere. Okay. In this, the faculties that are going to be there in this course are two people completely from Webster. We have Webster faculties. One of them, as I said, 𝗂𝘁𝗂, Professor 𝗂𝘁𝗂, is an international mediation consultant. Another one, Professor Dominic Jolly, is the head of business strategy there. So he is going to discuss doing business with China. He's going to talk of how strategy works in that regard. So we have both of these faculties, plus we have practitioners who have actually functioned in those specific jurisdictions, come and discuss how those jurisdictions work, how the business in that jurisdictions work, what can be a better route of entry, all of these things. Okay. So there'll be practitioners in those jurisdictions, or practitioners in India who have worked in those jurisdictions, who have worked on those jurisdictions. Okay, we'll have either one of these category of people coming and discussing these things with you. Okay, so this is what the course is all about. The total cost right now of the course is 73,000. But I can tell you from my experience that even if you are looking for a consultant who is guiding someone for an India entry, okay, 2 or 3 things for an India entry, even then the fees go into lakhs. So now if someone is actually guiding a business or an entry out into other jurisdictions, you can only assume what will be the charges. Okay. So tomorrow we're going to do a workshop on how to make a career in international business law. This is more focused on, like, students or people who are fresh consultants in this domain. So it is more focused on that, but it can be, like, of a value to someone who's looking to take their business global as well. So we're doing that. This is, the registration link for that. I might put that. You may use it yourself. You may share it with other people. So I'll just put it here in the chat. So someone has asked, will the recording of this recording of this webinar be made available? Yes, it will be available. It will be out there on YouTube. Okay, so you can have a look at that. Secondly, if you want to know further, because all of this February, it is just the 18th, we're going to conduct lots of webinars on international business law, which can be very useful for people who are at the helm of the company and taking decisions on how international business works. So you can join this WhatsApp group and you will be, you will come to know of all these webinars that we're going to hold on this topic. Let me put that down in the chat for you guys. So here is where you will get all, the details. Anyone has any questions before I end the session? We are bang at 10. Does anyone have any questions? No questions? Okay. So let me just check how this worked for you. Was the webinar worth your time? Did you get some insights out of the webinar? Did you get something? If you wanted to rate out of 10, what is the value that you got out of the webinar? Uh, 10 being I got a lot of value, 1 being not much. So please put your reviews in the chat so that we can come to know if we need to make any changes in what we are discussing. Kindly put your ratings in chat out of 10. Did you get value out of the webinar or did you not? Please put your ratings. Thank you, Mr. Bhanot. What about the other people? What about the other people? Only 1 rating. Okay. So thank you so much for being there with me on this webinar. And I hope I was able to share some insights and some things with you guys. Good night.